The glittering world of K-pop just had its worst year in nearly a decade, and the industry titans are desperately trying to hide the carnage. While your favorite groups were posting perfect Instagram photos and selling out world tours, the entire foundation of the K-pop machine was crumbling beneath their feet. Here's what they don't want you to know. Physical album sales in South Korea crashed by a devastating 23 million units in 2024. This wasn't just a minor dip, it was the first decline in 9 years, shattering the illusion of unstoppable growth that the industry had built its entire business model around. The financial bloodbath was even worse than anyone imagined. HYBE Corporation, the powerhouse behind BTS, watched their stock value plummet 29% in 2024. SM Entertainment, home to legendary groups like Girls' Generation and EXO, saw their shares crash 36%. JYP Entertainment got hit the hardest, losing a staggering 56% of their stock value. YG Entertainment, BLACKPINK's agency, wasn't spared either, dropping 37%. But here's where it gets really interesting. These aren't just numbers on a screen. These companies employ thousands of people, from the idols you see on stage to the countless staff members working behind the scenes. When stock prices collapse like this, it means layoffs, budget cuts, and desperate cost-cutting measures that directly impact the quality of music and performances fans have come to expect. The industry's response? Complete denial and frantic damage control. Company executives held emergency meetings, trying to spin the narrative that this was just a market correction or blame external factors like the Paris Olympics. They pointed fingers at everything except the real problem, their own unsustainable business practices. What's particularly shocking is how this contradicts the global success story they've been selling. K-pop exports still reached $291.8 million in 2024, but that was only a 0.55% increase from the previous year. For an industry that built its reputation on explosive growth, this essentially represents stagnation. The most telling sign? Fan consumption patterns completely shifted in 2024. The data reveals that fans are no longer dedicating themselves to single artists like they used to. The viewing share for the top 10 artists dropped from 45.65% in 2023 to just 37.32% in 2024, proving that the era of obsessive fan loyalty is ending. This isn't just about declining sales. It's about the fundamental breakdown of a system that relied on manufacturing artificial scarcity and emotional manipulation to drive profits. The industry created a bubble by convincing fans that buying multiple copies of the same album was somehow supporting their favorite artists, when in reality, it was just padding corporate balance sheets. The warning signs were there all along, but the industry chose to ignore them while chasing short-term gains. Now, as the house of cards collapses, the real victims aren't the wealthy entertainment companies. It's the artists themselves, trapped in contracts they signed before understanding the true cost of fame. What happened next would expose just how deep the rot really goes. The year 2024 ripped away the carefully constructed facade of K-pop's squeaky clean image, revealing a disturbing pattern of exploitation, criminal behavior, and systematic abuse that industry insiders had been covering up for years. The most shocking revelation came in August, when NCT's Taeil was not only kicked out of his group, but faced criminal charges for serious sexual crimes. This wasn't just another dating scandal or contract dispute, this was a criminal case that sent shockwaves through the entire industry. What made it worse was how long SM Entertainment had allegedly known about the situation before taking action. But Taeil's case was just the tip of the iceberg. BTS's Suga faced his own controversy when he was caught driving under the influence. The incident exposed how even the most successful idols struggle with the immense pressure of maintaining their perfect public image while dealing with personal demons. The real horror story lies in what industry insiders are finally willing to reveal about the trainee system. Former trainees have come forward with accounts of psychological manipulation, physical exhaustion, and financial exploitation that would make your blood run cold. These aren't just rumors. These are documented testimonies from people who lived through the system. Young trainees, some as young as 12 years old, are subjected to grueling 16-hour training days with minimal breaks. They're forced to maintain impossible weight standards, with some companies implementing weekly weigh-ins and punishment systems for gaining even a single pound. The psychological pressure is so intense that many trainees develop eating disorders, anxiety, and depression before they even debut. The financial exploitation is equally disturbing. Trainees are told they're investing in their future, but the reality is that companies rack up enormous debts in their names for training, housing, and production costs. Even after debuting, many idols don't see a single cent of profit for years because they're paying off these manufactured debts. What's particularly insidious is how the industry has perfected the art of emotional manipulation. They convince young people that suffering is necessary for success, that the abuse is just part of paying your dues. This creates a toxic culture where victims become perpetrators, with senior idols often treating newcomers the same way they were treated. The mental health crisis is reaching epidemic proportions, but the industry continues to sweep it under the rug. Multiple idols have spoken out about feeling suicidal, but instead of getting help, they're often told to think about the group or consider their fans. The pressure to maintain a perfect image while dealing with trauma creates a psychological pressure cooker that has already claimed too many lives. Even more disturbing is how the industry has weaponized fan culture to protect itself. When scandals break, companies often rely on devoted fans to attack accusers, silence critics, and control the narrative. This creates a toxic environment where legitimate concerns about abuse and exploitation are dismissed as anti-fan hate. The HYBE-ADOR feud that dominated headlines in 2024 gave us a rare glimpse into the corporate machinations behind the scenes. The public battle between the companies revealed just how much control these corporations have over their artists' lives and careers, treating them more like assets than human beings. But the most damning evidence comes from the contracts themselves. Industry lawyers who have reviewed these agreements describe them as modern slavery, with terms that would be illegal in most other industries. Artists sign away their rights to their own image, music, and even personal relationships for periods that can span decades. The system is so broken that even successful idols live in fear of their own companies. The financial house of cards that K-pop built over the past decade is collapsing, and the industry's desperate attempts to maintain their profit margins are backfiring spectacularly. What's happening behind the scenes is far more dramatic than any music video they've ever produced. The numbers don't lie, and they're painting a picture of an industry in free fall. Despite global success stories, major entertainment companies are hemorrhaging money in ways that would shock even their most dedicated investors. HYBE Corporation, despite managing BTS and other global superstars, has seen their diversification attempts fail miserably, with their gaming ventures and other business investments turning into money pits. The manipulation tactics that once guaranteed massive first-week sales are no longer working. For years, companies artificially inflated album sales through aggressive marketing schemes that bordered on fan exploitation. They created false scarcity with limited editions, forced fans to buy multiple copies for random photo cards, and organized fan signing events that required purchasing dozens of albums just for a chance to meet their idols. But 2024 marked the year fans finally started pushing back. The decline in album sales isn't just about market saturation, it's about fans realizing they've been manipulated into spending money they don't have on products they don't need. The industry's own greed created a backlash that's now threatening their entire business model. What's even more damaging is the shift in fan behavior that data analysts are calling the multi-stand phenomenon. Instead of dedicating their entire budget to one group, fans are spreading their attention and money across multiple artists. This is devastating for companies that built their revenue models on the assumption of obsessive, exclusive fan loyalty. The absence of new mega IP to replace BTS and BLACKPINK has created a revenue crisis that no one wants to acknowledge publicly. Companies spent billions creating new groups, expecting to replicate the success of their predecessors, but lightning hasn't struck twice. The market is oversaturated with similar-sounding groups, and audiences are suffering from what industry insiders call concept fatigue. The international expansion that was supposed to be the industry's salvation is proving to be more expensive than profitable. While K-pop exports reached $291, $8 million in 2024, the cost of international marketing, touring, and promotion often exceeds the revenue generated. Companies are burning through cash trying to break into markets that may never provide sustainable returns. The streaming revenue that was supposed to offset declining physical sales has proven to be a mirage. While K-pop gets billions of streams globally, the per-stream payouts are so low that even viral hits barely cover production costs. The industry's obsession with streaming numbers has created a situation where success is measured in views rather than actual profit. Perhaps most telling is how desperate companies have become in their attempts to maintain relevance. The constant debut of new groups, the increasingly expensive music video productions, and the relentless touring schedules are all signs of an industry trying to manufacture demand in a market that's already oversaturated. The corporate culture within these companies has become toxic, with executives making increasingly risky bets to satisfy shareholders while ignoring the long-term sustainability of their business models. Insider reports suggest that some companies are operating on credit lines that would collapse if just one major group decided to leave or if album sales declined any further. What makes this crisis even more serious is how it's affecting the artists themselves. With companies under financial pressure, they're cutting costs everywhere possible, including the support systems that keep idols healthy and functional. The reduction in mental health resources, the increased workload pressure, and the shortened promotion cycles are all direct results of the financial squeeze. The industry's response to this crisis reveals just how out of touch they've become with reality. The truth about K-pop's future is far darker than any industry executive will admit publicly, and the warning signs are everywhere if you know where to look. What's happening right now isn't just a temporary setback, it's the beginning of a fundamental transformation that will destroy the industry as we know it. Industry insiders who spoke anonymously to financial publications have revealed that several major companies are operating on unsustainable business models that could collapse within the next 2 years. The pressure to maintain growth rates that were never realistic in the first place has created a house of cards that's finally tumbling down. The mental health crisis within the industry has reached epidemic proportions, but companies continue to cover it up because acknowledging it would mean admitting their system is fundamentally broken. Former company executives have described internal meetings where the discussion wasn't about how to help struggling artists, but about how to manage the public relations fallout when those artists inevitably break down. The suicide rates among K-pop trainees and idols are significantly higher than the general population, but this information is actively suppressed through legal threats and media manipulation. Families of deceased idols are often paid substantial sums to sign non-disclosure agreements, ensuring that the true scope of the crisis never becomes public knowledge. What's particularly disturbing is how the industry has weaponized fan culture to protect itself from accountability. Companies have created sophisticated social media manipulation campaigns that use fans as unpaid soldiers to attack journalists, suppress negative coverage, and silence critics. This isn't just about managing public relations, it's about controlling the narrative so completely that even obvious problems become invisible. The financial projections that companies refuse to share publicly paint a grim picture of the industry's future. Market analysts who have access to internal documents predict that at least 2 of the Big 4 entertainment companies will either merge or face bankruptcy within the next 5 years. The overexpansion into international markets, combined with declining domestic sales, has created a perfect storm of financial instability. The international expansion that was supposed to save the industry is actually accelerating its collapse. Companies are spending enormous amounts of money to break into markets that may never provide sustainable returns, while neglecting the domestic market that built their success in the first place. This strategy is like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much water you pour in, it will never be full. The next generation of K-pop idols is already showing signs of rejecting the traditional system. More trainees are speaking out about abuse, more idols are demanding better contracts, and more fans are questioning the ethics of their support. This generational shift represents an existential threat to companies that built their entire business model on exploitation and manipulation. Perhaps most damaging is the growing international scrutiny of the industry's practices. As K-pop becomes more global, it's attracting the attention of labor rights organizations, mental health advocates, and media watchdogs who aren't afraid to expose the truth. The industry's traditional methods of silencing critics won't work in international markets where press freedom is protected. The technology that once helped spread K-pop globally is now being used to expose its darkest secrets. Social media platforms that companies once used to control narratives are now giving voice to victims, whistleblowers, and critics who can't be silenced through traditional means. The uncomfortable truth is that your favorite idols are trapped in a system that's designed to exploit them, and the companies that market them as happy, successful performers are often the source of their deepest trauma. The perfect performances, the flawless appearances, and the cheerful personalities you see on stage are often masks covering profound suffering that the industry has no intention of addressing. The future of K-pop depends on whether the industry can admit its failures and implement real reform, or whether it will continue down the path of exploitation and manipulation until the entire system collapses under its own weight. Based on the evidence we've seen in 2024, the latter seems far more likely. The golden age of K-pop is over, and what comes next will determine whether the industry survives or becomes a cautionary tale about what happens when profit is prioritized over human dignity.